Hi everybody and welcome to Out of the Gate, Daily Racing Form's weekend handicapping preview program. I'm Dan Ullman. Thanks so much for watching. Here's what's coming up in this week's edition of Out of the Gate. 3 Grade 1 races to discuss. DRF handicappers Mike Beer, Matt Bernier, and I will take a peek at the Grade 1 Woodward at Saratoga. Also the Grade 1 Spinaway Stakes, a Breeders' Cup Challenge Series win and you're in for the juvenile fillies. The Delmar Debutante, a Grade 1 race for juvenile fillies at Del Mar as well. Nicole Russo's pedigree pick segment focuses on the babies in the Spinaway and the Delmar Debutante. David Aragona of Timeform US spotlights an intriguing long shot to consider in the Woodward. JK's play of the day, he's got a daily double. We've got best bets, horses to watch, tournament talk, and lots more. So let's break Out of the Gate. We begin Out of the Gate with our Horse Watch segment. Mike Beer, Naira analyst, your horse to watch this week, the definition of widest and fastest.
Yeah, this one's hot off the presses, Dan. Just on Wednesday at Saratoga, Opry, a 2-year-old colt trained by Todd Pletcher, made his second career start, first start on turf. He ran pretty well in his career debut, a race that was rained off the grass. This was his first turf start. It's the Grade 3 with anticipation. He didn't break great in this race. He was last. You can see all the way around here into the upper stretch. It's at this point that Javier Castellano is going to take him clear. This horse comes with a pretty good finish to the stretch here. He was meant for turf all along. He is going to run right by these horses in the last 16th of a mile, and he's still going pretty strong at the end. I thought this was a pretty impressive turf debut for a horse who might have a bit of a future for Pletcher.
Big, scopy, turf-bred horse, Opry. I do think he has a future. We'll be seeing him in graded stakes races down the road. I'm going to go with a 2-year-old, and there are going to be a lot of good 2-year-olds this weekend in the Spinaway and the Delmar Debutante. None of them are as fast as Trophy Chaser, who won his maiden second out at Gulfstream Park last week over a wet track. Let's go to that race right now. It's his second lifetime start. He was bet down to even money in a 4.5 furlong race in July, and he just got beat a neck. He was bet down to 4 to 5 in this race, and he wins by 15 3/4 lengths with a 96 Beyer speed figure. This is a son of Twirling Candy, who started to show some ability at the March 2-year-old in training sale for OBS, $42,000 purchase after breezing a furlong in 10 seconds flat. Again, he's by Twirling Candy. The second dam is a full sister to Flanders. Something tells me that trainer Juana Villa's phone has been ringing non-stop since Trophy Chaser received that 96 Beyer speed figure. A 2-year-old to watch down in South Florida. Now we'll see if he eventually stretches out. Let's go to Matt Bernier's Horse Watch, and when we return, it'll be some handicapping the Grade 1 Woodward.
My horse watch this week is unfortunately my best bet from last week, and it is what it is. Still there. I really liked her going into the Ballerina, and I thought she ran tremendous, and I thought she was a bit unlucky. We're going to go back and take a look at the stretch run of the Ballerina, and you can see just some unfortunate circumstances. David Cohen has a ton of horse in behind runners, nowhere to really go, eventually gets her extricated out to the outside, but at that point, Marley's Freedom had already gotten the jump, and she goes on and wins by more than 3 lengths. I kind of feel like there's a scenario where perhaps Still There never actually is able to turn the tables on Marley's Freedom, but I think she can be a heck of a lot closer and make that margin of victory much less. She's now paired up career Beyer tops of 94, has Still There, and I said it in the recap edition of my show, I think there's a big race for her. And to be honest, if I were the connections, I would be looking at the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint and say, you know what, we weren't beaten that badly by Marley's Freedom, and we had a little bit of an excuse. We know that we can run with the rest of the girls. Why not take a chance? It's in a few months now. I think there's a real scenario where Still There wins one of these big races for the fillies and mares, and she will be my horse watch going forward.
Saturday's DRF Bets race of the day is the Grade 1 Woodward at Saratoga. Let's take a look at this field. It's a Grade 1, $750,000 is the purse. You can access free formulator past performances on the race of the day event page at drf.com, and for expanded stakes previews of all the graded races all weekend long, head on over to video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Mike, the 2 horses to beat on paper, or perhaps the 2 most talented horses, are Yoshida and Gunnevera. Yoshida trying dirt for the first time. There's a question mark right there at a relatively short price. As for Gunnevera, his talent is obvious. His performance last time out off the layup, just a perfect prep, I thought.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, this is nothing more than a prep race, and you're going to see the replay here. That he wins this race he's a very short price, a field that he was supposed to beat. But this is just a really good horse going about his business here, Dan. They took him back to last early. He ran right by this field around the second turn. He wins easily. To me, this is the kind of race that he probably needed, and it probably sets him up perfectly perfectly for a race like the Woodward, where he is going to have to show up and run his very best race.
As you mentioned in the preview, that race that we just saw, reminiscent of his prep for last year's Travers Stakes, in which he ran an excellent second with trouble. The issue with Gunnevera is he is a one-run closer that is dependent on race and pace luck. He is a very, very talented horse. However, a very consistent horse is Seeking the Soul, Mike. This horse has reeled off 4 consecutive triple-digit Beyer speed figures, is a Grade 1 winner at this distance, and he might have gotten a fine prep last time.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what he does here. I mean, he was off of a layoff in this replay that we're going to look at right now, the Schaefer Memorial, Indiana Downs. You know, I think he runs well here. You can see at the top of the stretch, he's a big favorite. He ranges right up alongside the eventual winner here, Pioneer Spirit. Looks like he's going to win this race as he's supposed to, and then he doesn't get by in the stretch. I'm not that disappointed by it. It's a race that obviously he could have won, but I'm not going to be too hard on him for this one. I think he takes a step forward on Saturday. As you pointed out, he's very consistent. He really improved last year as a 4-year-old. I'm hoping that this race set him up perfectly for the Woodward. And he's the kind of horse who, while he's not a speed, he's not going to be as far off of it as some of the others.
You took the words right out of my mouth. Gunnevera, one-run closer. Yoshida probably coming from the back of the pack in his dirt debut, facing probably a stronger pace than he's used to seeing on turf. Seeking the Soul, more versatile. He'll get the jump on those horses, I would believe, turning into the stretch. While the Woodward is a Grade 1 race and it's a fine betting field with a field of 14 and a moderate favorite at something like 4-1, it's really lacking the top horses in the division, and I think that gives the Discreet Lover a little bit of a chance at a pretty good price. We're used to seeing Discreet Lover in Grade 1 races featuring the likes of Gun Runner and Diversify and Mind Your Biscuits, and he's just usually overmatched in those races, as he was in his most recent start. This is the Whitney earlier in this meet over a wet track, and he got a very nice pace to run at, but he ran. And this is what he does in almost each and every start. He gives a good, solid, honest effort. He's going to finish third behind 2 horses that are simply better than he is, Diversify and Mind Your Biscuits. Maybe the wet track helped him, maybe the fast pace helped him, but I think he's getting some class relief, even though he's moving from a Grade 1 to a Grade 1, and he's going to be a good price based on his underrated connections. I'm going to give Discreet Lover a little bit of a chance at 8-1. If you want to know who Matt Bernier likes in the Woodward, you're going to have to tune into NBCSN at 5:30 Eastern on Saturday. Matt and the rest of the NBC gang will be live at Saratoga for the Woodward. Nicole Russo's Pedigree Pick segment this week focuses on the babies in the Delmar Debutante and the Spinaway Stakes. Then we got Peter Thomas Fornatel with his tournament talk, giving us all the latest news and notes in the worlds of tournament play. Let's hit those segments right now.
Hey everyone, Nicole Russo coming to you for Out of the Gate. Saratoga and Del Mar both wrapping up their summer meets over the Labor Day holiday weekend with Grade 1 action for 2-year-olds. Going to take a look at Saturday's action, where you'll see a pair of fillies with classic connections running on the opposite coasts. We'll begin with the Grade 1 Spinaway Stakes up at Saratoga, and you'll see here this sizable field led by Schuylerville winner Catherine the Great. But if you're a pedigree player, all eyes will be on the royally bred Chasing Yesterday, shipping in Bob Baffert. The Tappet filly, the half-sister to Triple Crown winner American Pharaoh. She was an impressive debut winner, going 5.5 furlongs at Del Mar, powering clear for the win. And stretching out to 7 furlongs here, I don't think this distance or beyond will be a problem for her. Of course, her half-brother, American Pharaoh, with his Triple Crown sweep and a couple of other strong performances at 10 furlongs. But Tappet, maybe with his best bred group of 2-year-olds to date, also a multiple classic sire, 3 Belmont Stakes winners to his credit. A lot of stamina in this family, and a lot of precocity as well for Chasing Yesterday as she gets her class test against juvenile Grade 1 company. Don't forget that American Pharaoh was also a juvenile champion, and his full sister, American Cleopatra, Grade 1 placed as a 2-year-old. Now, meanwhile, out on the West Coast, they'll card the Grade 1 Delmar Debutante on Saturday. A smaller field also anchored by an impressive debut winner with a classic connection to Baffert in Mother. Now, this filly should handle a little bit of added distance from the 6.5 furlongs of her debut 7. She's a half Kentucky Derby runner-up, standing curve, and a hot to a stake placed it up the mile. More importantly, sire Pioneer Nile, a route runner and a power stamina influence. He can also get you an outstanding juvenile, as evidenced by his 2-year-old champions, American Pharaoh and Classic Empire. Now, Mother, kind of interesting because she's the standout so far from the crop foals produced by the mare's Pioneer of the Nile was bred to in spring 2015 after American Pharoah's first championship season, fall before. So it stands to reason that would have been his best book of mares, at least to date at that point. Of course, he got an even better group in 2016 after the Triple Crown sweep and should continue on upward ascent. The Spinaway and Debutante, 2 of the 4 two-year-old stakes over the weekend, both Saratoga and Del Mar will have grade 1 action coming up on the holiday Monday. The Saratoga feature that day will be the grade 1 stake. Dan Illman and I will be bringing that to you on Spa Babies, part of our wall-to-wall coverage of closing weekend stakes at both tracks on DRFT.
Peter Thomas Fornatale back with you from the world-famous Paddock Bar here in beautiful Saratoga Springs. We have just a few days left. It's been a long, interesting summer, both at Saratoga and Del Mar. Great contest action at both venues. It's all winding down. So we have 2 choices. We can sit here, we can enjoy the rest of it, we can cry in our beer, or we can start looking forward to some of the big contest action that's coming up this fall. For one thing, just in a couple of weeks, we've got a tournament up at Woodbine for the Woodbine Mile. That's one thing we can think about to take our minds off our troubles. Another thing is to look ahead to Keeneland, big contest weekend at Keeneland, October 13th and 14th. Contest both days, $3,000 buy-in on Sunday, $400 buy-in on Saturday. Best of all, you have your opportunity to win your way in on DRF tournaments this weekend on Saturday. You put up $410. 1 in 10 players will win a package worth $3,500. That's a $3,000 buy-in to Keeneland and $500 in travel. Other excellent contest action coming up this weekend on DRFT as well, with chances to win into the Orleans Fall Classic, as well as DRF's own World Championship of Handicapping. Don't be sad. It's wrapping up. I know. I feel it in my heart too. Let's do a little bit of mental jujitsu. Let's enjoy the time we have left. Let's point ahead to the fall, and I think we can make it all right. All right, that's all I have live from the Paddock Bar. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatale. Stay tuned for more on Out of the Gate.
Are you a horse player looking to raise your game? For over 120 years, expert handicappers have relied on Daily Racing Form as their must-have source for news and data, featuring exclusive buyer speed figures, Timeform US pace figures, and integrated replays. DRF Formulator is the most powerful handicapping tool on the market today. Use what the pros use. Go to drf.com/formulator and enter code DRFTV to get your first card free. drf.com. Raise your game.
Welcome back to Out of the Gate. Let's throw up the field for Saturday's Grade 1 $350,000 Spinaway Stakes for 2-year-old fillies going 7 furlongs on the main track. For expanded stakes previews, visit video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. We cover all the graded stakes races all weekend long. Mike, the Spinaway, a Breeders' Cup Challenge Series win-in-your-in race for the juvenile fillies, features one gigantic pedigree. It's Chasing Yesterday, it's Bob Baffert, it's Mike Smith. Perhaps most importantly to the fans out there, it's the little half-sister to American Pharoah.
Yeah, she is, and it certainly looked like she could run first time out, Dan. Obviously, she was no secret going off at 1-5. We'll look at the replay now. She obviously wins this race pretty easily. She had speed right from the start. She set up on the pace here with the horse who will eventually run second to her. That horse is just no match for her in the stretch, and she wins it clear. There's not a lot of running going on behind these two horses, so I'm not really sure what she's beating in here, but this is probably exactly what you want to see. 86 buyer for her debut. It makes her fastest on the way in. It's really hard to go against Bob Baffert and Mike Smith when they ship into running graded stakes in New York. It seems like they win all of them. But this filly is shipping into a pretty tough spot here. There are some good fillies in this race. I'm not so sure that I want to bet her at a short price in this race, Dan. I'm using her in multis. I'm trying to beat her in the spin-away.
Baffert, however, showing a lot of confidence. He could have stayed at home at the same distance in the Delmar Debutante, where he has a very talented runner in Mother in her own right. He's decided to ship all the way out with an inexperienced runner. I have a feeling she can run. I have a feeling that she and Catherine the Great are the horses to beat. Yeah. But a horse at a price that has shown some talent, and I think will be running at the end of a race that should have a good pace, is your top selection, the 11 Restless Rider.
Yeah, we'll see what happens here. I agree with you. I think between Catherine the Great and Chasing Yesterday, you got the two horses to beat, two very talented 2-year-old fillies. I'm going to take a shot against them with Restless Rider and just see what happens. She's run twice, both times back in June at Churchill. We don't have replays for those races, but if you can get your hands on them, you should watch them. She won easily first time out, showing a little bit of speed. Second time out in a stakes race, she ran even better, Dan. She got into a lot of trouble on that race, in behind a horse who went wrong in front of her. She had to check. She lost all of her momentum, and she overcame that to win very easily. This filly can run a little bit. I like that she's drawn outside. I like that she's probably getting overlooked in the wagering here. I think she has a real chance to be competitive with this field.
I think you always have to upgrade 2-year-olds that overcome adversity. Most of the horses we see win like Chasing Yesterday. They show brilliant early speed. They sit outside. They don't get dirt in their face. They don't have a straw in their path, and they win impressively. Your top selection, very impressive, overcoming adversity. I'm basically stabbing all weekend long. I'm looking for a price. Maybe my top selections are better used underneath in single race exotics. I think the 10 Reflect is a little bit of an outside chance, though, for Keith DeZormo. Let's go back to the debut win. That's something you don't usually hear with Keith DeZormo trained horses. This was at Santa Anita, and Reflect sat on the outside, and she comes with a good solid run to win. It was a nice performance, and she followed it up with an effort in the Sorrento Stakes most recently. It was a race where she broke from an outside post position, and Kent DeZormo really made a concerted effort to get down as close to the rail as possible, and by the time he did, the race really started to heat up, and she was outrun by the eventual winner, Bellafino, who we'll talk about later on the show in the Delmar Debutante. I think this time around, we're going to see Reflect near the back of the pack, allowed to make one run. Keith DeZormo trained horses usually improve with experience and a little bit of distance. She's going to be a price. I'd use her underneath the two favorites in here, but I will give a little bit of a shot to the 10 Reflect. Let's go to Matt's top selection, and when we come back, we'll move out west for the Delmar Debutante.
Full field of 2-year-old fillies in the Grade 1 Spinaway up at the spot on Saturday afternoon. I think 3 or 4 horses are going to take the lion's share of the money, as well as the overall attention from the wagering public, rightfully so, especially the number 7, Chasing Yesterday, coming in from Southern California for Baffert and Smith. You know, when they team up, they mean business, but the way that she broke her maiden in her career debut, sensational. The fact that they're going to ship her cross-country for her second lifetime start speaks volumes to what they think of her. Oh yeah, she happens to be American Pharoah's little sister. I think the sky is the limit for Chasing Yesterday, and I think she's going to be a bear in here. But from a wagering standpoint, I don't think she's going to offer a ton of value. A horse that I think could be a square price and might have quite a bit of talent is the number 11 Restless Rider. That's a horse going in here for Kenny McPeak, Brian Hernandez Jr. The way she won that debutante at Churchill Downs at the end of June. Horses aren't supposed to do that, aren't supposed to encounter the kind of trouble that she did. She ran up on a horse, took a terrible step, lost all momentum, had to check hard. BJ Hernandez had to get her out into the clear. She found her rhythm quite quickly, and she went on. Not only did she win, she won by over 11 lengths. It was a visually tremendous performance. She's been gone since then. There is a 3-race sort of plan for her. It's the Spinaway, it's the Alcibiades down at Keeneland, it's the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies at Churchill Downs. I think Restless Rider has a ton of ability, and I think there's a scenario where you get a decent square price on her. That's the 11 Restless Rider in the Spinaway, but I have to admit, I think this race goes through Chasing Yesterday. I'll take the 11, I'll pick her and I'll bet her, but Chasing Yesterday I think is going to be a handful for Baffert and Smith.
Let's throw up the field for the Grade 1 Delmar Debutante for 2-year-old fillies, carded as race number 4. $300,000 is the purse. A field of 5, but 3 top 2-year-old fillies in this race. For expanded stakes previews of all the graded stakes races this weekend, including the Delmar Debutante, head on over to video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Mike Beer, Bob Baffert's going to have the favorite in the 2-year-old race for Grade 1 at Saratoga. He might have the favorite in here, Mother Mother, or he might have the third choice. That's how good this race is.
It'll be interesting to see how they bet at 3. As you mentioned, very talented fillies, very impressive winners already on the racetrack. And we'll see what happens here in the Grade 1 Delmar Debutante. I did side with Mother Mother for Baffert. This horse is obviously going to have to show up and run as well as she did first time. I would look at her debut now. Really thought she ran well in here, though, Dan. She had speed, but they didn't just go with her. They got her off the inside. They let her sort of find her stride, and she ran away from, I think, a pretty good horse in here. The horse that runs second to her. She just runs away from that horse in the stretch. I like this debut from her. It's no easy spot. We'll see how they wind up betting it. I don't think this is much of a betting race, but it's going to be a very interesting race to watch because all 3 of these fillies ran really, really well already.
It's going to be a really interesting tactical race as well. You mentioned how they got her off the rail and into the clear, and I think they're going to do it again. She draws just inside Bellafina, a horse that's very fast. I think they're going to let Bellafina go, get to the outside. There's plenty of time in the 7 furlong test, and I think she'll attack on the turn. Let's talk about Bellafina a little bit. We'll go back to that Sorrento Stakes that I mentioned. I'm going to take a little bit of a stab with the one that Bellafina beat. And it's a big ask, let's be honest, for Bougie Girl, the number 1. We turn into the stretch of the Sorrento. Bellafina, still a maiden, first-time blinkers showing big speed. Bougie Girl was in the 5 path on the backstretch, 4 wide all the way around the turn, and now she is paying the price for her ground loss. Don't really like that she's flashing her tail a little bit under pressure, but she understandably gets tired. She lost significant ground all the way around the turn. And if the 2 horses on the lead, Mother Mother, Bellafina, they hook up early, maybe Bougie Girl can sit in third. Again, maybe not the most likely winner, but a horse that you can fool around with underneath in single race exotics. We're going to go with Matt's pick right now, and then we'll go back to JK's play of the day and David Aragona's Time Form U.S. Spotlight.
Delmar Debutante doesn't have a ton of horses as far as overall field size is concerned, but the horses that are here, all of them have ability. I could see 3 of these horses being the top 5 choices for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies here in a few months. I just kind of look at it and say, Brill, the way that she won on debut, they paid $1 million for her. She stumbled out of the gates, made this big, wide, sweeping move. And yes, I'll admit, I think the outside portion of the racetrack at Del Mar that day was probably where you wanted to be, but she looked very, very good. And I would have to imagine with a more alert beginning this time around, you have those outside horses, the 4 Mother Mother, the 5 Bellafina. If they go out there and they show a little bit of intent, Brill has already proven that she can sit and be effective and come and go get horses. I don't think the stretch out from 5 furlongs to 7 is going to be a problem for her. The Hollendorfer barn continues to roll along, specifically with the 2-year-olds. Wouldn't be surprised at all if any one of the big 3 ended up winning this one, but I'll go with Brill over Bellafina over Mother in the Delmar Debutante.
Hey everybody, welcome to JK's Play of the Day. Closing weekend at Saratoga. Sometimes that's sad, but it also means we're getting a little bit closer to the Breeders' Cup. I'm going to start with a pick 3 starting in race 10, the Grade 1 Spinaway. I'm going to use 2 horses, the California Invaders, the 7 chasing yesterday, the half to American Pharaoh. Ran well on debut. Bob Baffert doesn't need to tell you about his record with Mike Smith in stakes races out at Saratoga. I'm not really sure if he's ever lost a race here, all jokes aside, but he has been doing really well. I'm also going to use Keith DeSormo's horse that picks up Manny Franco, the 10 horse Reflect. Horse ran well on debut against Bellafina, who's going to run in the Grade 1 out at Del Mar. I think that horse has a chance to improve. Just the West Coast horses for me on the dirt out here on the East Coast. Going on to the next race, the Grade 1 Woodward. Big field, 14 horses. I don't really know where to land. I'm going to follow the jockeys. Johnny shows up in a place I didn't expect him. Jose shows up in a spot I didn't expect him. Manny, Joel. I'm going to start with the 1, Yoshida, a horse that's obviously a pet horse of mine. I think that horse actually could run well on the dirt, being out of Hilda's Passion, who is a really good dirt horse in her own right. And I'm also going to use the 4, Taproot, who's looking to improve a little bit. Hasn't really run the race we've expected him to run, but I think he could be a little bit better this time around. I'm going to use the 7 as well, Kurlaw for Chad Brown. The horse has always been bet, always been well meant. I think that there's a chance he could get a trip in this situation. The 8, Discreet Lover, often forgotten when it shows up in these New York tracks, but I think he's got a shot of running better in here. And the 12 as well, Sunny Ridge. Jason Service Effect, we've talked about Jason Service and how well he's done at Naira. I think this horse could run well in this spot. And then I'm going to single in race 12, a horse that I've tried to single a few times throughout the meet, and that's the horse Santa Monica. Santa Monica is drawn in the 5 this time, and I think that she's live in this spot. She ran huge at Woodbine, and I think she's got a chance to run well here as well, so I'm going to single her in the 3rd leg. Good luck, and we'll see you next week.
Hi everyone, this is David Aragona with this week's Time Formula Spotlight. We're going to take a look at the big race on Saturday at Saratoga. It's the Grade 1 Woodward. It goes as race 11 of 12. It's a gigantic field, 14 horses going 1.1 miles, both turns around Saratoga, full circuit. This race drew a bunch of horses that might be familiar names, but they're familiar in the sense that you would say to yourself, I didn't know this horse was still racing, or where has this horse been all year? Because you have a ton of horses coming off layoffs, a bunch of horses that haven't really been running in these top handicap races recently, but they're all coming together for this Woodward. It's a wide open race. There's no clear favorite. Out of the 14 horses, the horse that's probably going to go off favorite is Gunnevera, the number 9 horse. He'll probably vie for favoritism with Yoshida and Seeking the Soul. But it's a totally wide open field. We'll start off by taking a look at the pace projector for this race because I think it's important to discuss how the pace is going to play out. You see that the 3 horses on the lead, the number 12, 13, and 14, that's Sunny Ridge, Zenati, and Rally Cry, none of them are really true front runners. They're all more stalking, tracking types. And also, the pace projector doesn't really, it basically analyzes the horses as if they're racing down a straightaway. It doesn't really take into consideration the fact that these horses are heading right into the clubhouse turn when they break out of the gate. And if you watch a lot of races going 9 furlongs at Saratoga, it's nearly impossible for the outside post positions to get to the front just because they have to make that left-hand turn to start making the clubhouse turn. So these horses are really going to be at a disadvantage. I'll frankly be surprised if Rally Cry, who seems like the speed on paper, is able to make the lead because he's just at such a disadvantage breaking for that 14 post position. We'll see if anybody from the inside goes, but I think it's a real toss-up as to who makes the lead in here. We'll start by taking a look at Gunnevera of the main contenders. He's a popular horse. He's probably going to be favored. He's done well at Saratoga in the past. He obviously won the Saratoga Special 2 years ago and was a really strong second in the Travers last year. He's just run the best races going back to the end of last season. His Travers was excellent. He came back in the Breeders' Cup Classic and ran a better than it looks 5th because he was really closing at the end of that race against some really top horses, and he was 3rd in the Pegasus World Cup. If he repeats any of those efforts, he's going to be a handful in this race. It's just, given that pace situation and the fact that there's no speed for him to run into, he's a deep closer. He's probably going to be last or in the last flight of horses early. How is he going to work out a trip in this race? I just don't quite see it, and he's going to be a short price. I'm a little bit against him, but I respect his talent. The horse drawn right to his outside is Seeking the Soul. Now, he's not quite as deep of a closer as Gunnevera is, but he's another one that's going to be coming from off the pace. He, too, got really good last year. He won the Clark Handicap at Grade 1. He came back and finished just behind Gunnevera when he was 5th in the Pegasus World Cup. He's been off for a long time, but his return last time at Indiana Downs, I thought it was fine. He got beaten by an inferior runner, but it was just a starting point for him going 1 mile and 70 yards. Stretching out to the 1.1 miles is going to be exactly what he wants. He's obviously fast enough to win this race. I'm using him. I'm just also concerned about the trip with this horse. One horse that might show a bit more speed, and I like his inside post position, is the number 4 horse, Taprit. Look, he too has been a disappointment this year. He's never gotten back to his Belmont Stakes win, but you can make some excuses because in the Suburban 2-back, he just kind of got floated out through the stretch of that race and ended up way on the outside, far away from Diversify and the runners that were coming up the rail. I just thought he could have been a little bit closer at the end of that race had he gotten a different trip. And then last time, I guess you can use the sloppy track as an excuse. He got beaten by Discreet Lover on both occasions, who's back in this race, but he too is another closer. I would imagine from this 4 post position, they're just going to send Taprit out of there, hope to get up in that first flight of runners, and I think he can outstay them. It's just, is he fast enough to win this race anymore? I don't really know. 2 horses that interest me. One is the 12, Sunny Ridge. He's going to be up close to the pace of this race. I don't totally trust that he's quite good enough to win a Grade 1 race, but he's really solid. He's in good form for Jason's service. I was impressed with his win at Belmont last time in the state dinner. I know that was around 1 turn, but he's been perfectly capable of handling 2 turns in the past. We saw the 3rd place finisher in that race, Fury to Blame, come back and win up here. So I think Sunny Ridge is dangerous. I just worry about the post position, even though he has the right running style. Ultimately, I landed on number 7, Kurlov. I know he looks a little bit inferior to these horses, but I like him going 9 furlongs on the dirt, and he's prepped for this in the Allerdar last time. That was a race where the speed figure came back a bit slower, but I think within the context of that race, he actually ran very well because he made an early move to the lead. He hit the front of the quarter pole, which was just a bit too soon considering the pace of that race. And for the last quarter mile, Arad Ortiz allowed him to drift down to the rail. August 5th was a day that you did not want to be on the rail at Saratoga. The rail was dead the entire day. Horses that went down to the rail, especially in the stretch, were just fading. And I thought Krylov actually ran really well to only lose that race by a head, despite running through the entire stretch on the inside path. I feel like he's working into this race pretty well. I think overall, he actually is a better dirt horse than turf horse, even though they run him on turf more in this country. He's going to be up close, forwardly placed. I don't think he's quite quick enough to be on the lead, but he's going to work out a decent trip in behind the speeds. And I think he might just trip out in this race. He's going to be a price. So I'm taking a shot with Krylov and the Woodward, but this is a race where you want to spread in any multi-race sequences because it is perplexing. It's wide open. You can get a price home. So that's a look at Saturday's Woodward Stakes. Now let's send it back to the studio.
Time for our best bet segment here on Out of the Gate. Matt Bernier's best bet is a horse he's been waiting for a long time.
My best bet comes on Sunday afternoon, the main event down at Louisiana Downs, race number 11, 1 1/16 on the main track for 3-year-olds, the Grade 3 Super Derby. We're going to go back and take a look at the stretch run of the West Virginia Derby at Mountaineer Park, and you're going to see a horse go out there and streak to the lead and go on and win by 100. That's Mr. Freeze. But you have to remember, Mountaineer Park that afternoon was an absolute highway. You made the front, you didn't stop. The number 9 in this race on Sunday anyway, the number 9, Lionite, for Steve Asmussen, he never had a chance with the way that track was playing, but I thought he tried at the very end. Comes on with a little bit of a belated bid. Thought he was unlucky 2 starts back in the Iowa Derby in behind horses. I think this is a beautiful opportunity for him. He's breaking from the far outside, 9-2 on the morning line. Combine that most recent situation with the speed-friendly track at Mountaineer Park, and then you couple it with the fact that I'm not sold on the 2 morning line favorites. You've got Lone Sailor in here, you've got High North. I think Lionite is right there from a talent standpoint. A little bit dirtied up in his 2 most recent starts. I think he's got a big chance here in the Super Derby on Sunday afternoon. I'm going to go with the number 9, Lionite, for Steve Asmussen, 9-2 on the morning line.
Mike Beard, NYRA analyst, your best bet was a best bet earlier this week at Saratoga. Scratched.
Yep.
You find him at Kentucky Downs.
Yeah, there's a lot going on at Saratoga Saturday. I probably should have stayed there. It's an excellent card up at Saratoga. But Henley's Joy, the horse you're referencing, I wanted to bet this horse with anticipation. On Wednesday, Mike Maker had other ideas. He ran a different horse in that race. I'm going to have to chase Henley's Joy all the way down to Kentucky Downs on Saturday, but I'm going to do it. I love this horse's debut. Second-time starter. Let's throw up the replay of his first race. Had a little trouble here early in this race. Got spun wide into the first turn, had to take back off the pace. Look at the run this horse puts in from the top of the stretch stand. Once he got into position, he charges down the outside here, runs right by this field. He gets a little bit green here. Once he hits the front, you can see him. He's trying to get in. His rider has to take a big hold of him. The race is over. None of that stuff matters. Maker will add blinkers for this race. We'll see if it makes a difference. I have to bet this horse. He's 6-1 on the line. If he's anywhere near that price, I'm going after him.
And listen, that Ellis Park 2-year-old program is very underrated. There have been some good horses to come out of that program in recent years, and that was a very visually impressive debut. My best bet, Pennsylvania Stakes action at Parks on Saturday. Race number 8's the Banjo Picker Sprint Stakes. And I'm going to go with the number 4, Midtown Charlie Brown, 7-2 second choice on the morning line. Midtown Charlie Brown has won 7 of 13 lifetime starts and his last 3 races on dirt. Now, for most of his career, he's been a big speed. So it was nice to see in his most recent start at Laurel the ability to sit off another horse and come get him. And you usually don't run down Jorge Navarro trained loose on the lead horses like Rockefeller's too often, but Midtown Charlie Brown digs down, and he's going to come and get Rockefeller's to win with an 86 Beyer speed figure. The good news is on Saturday, if Midtown Charlie Brown wants the lead, he's going to get it. And the horse that's going to pressure him is going to be the horse that's going to take money, The Man, coming off of a win at Delaware Park last time out, but The Man was all out in that race. And I think Midtown Charlie Brown at a better price is coming into the Banjo Picker Sprint Stakes in slightly better form. We thank you for watching Out of the Gate this week, and we urge you to follow all of DRF TV's latest offerings on Twitter. Follow at DRF Video, and for the latest news and notes from America's Turf Authority Daily Racing Forum, follow at DRF Inside Post. Again, that's it for this week. Best of luck when your horses break out of the gate.